Good evening. Welcome to the AICA-UK annual lecture. Obviously, we've had a fair gap in those lectures, so it's fantastic for us all to be together again. My name is Sasha Craddock, and I'm the president of AICA-UK, which doesn't mean very much. There is an executive here, and everyone on the exec has been working like mad to organise this event. I would just like, before I introduce our wonderful speaker, to just tell some of you who perhaps not AICA members about AICA and what it actually stands for, because somehow these things become taken for granted or disappear into the mists of time. So I need to just, at the end of the 1940s, at a time when many art schools and movements were founded, art critics, historians and educators, as well as modern art museum curators, met at two UNESCO conferences in 1948 and 49. And basically, the purpose of these conferences and these meetings was to compare points of view about the role played by art criticism. I know you might think that's a bit over heavy-handed, but it's an important thing. And to analyse its responsibility towards artists and the public, while considering how art history has evolved. Anyway, following on from these UNESCO international conferences, AICA, the Association Internationale des Critiques d'Art, International blah blah blah, Association of Art Critics, was founded in Paris in 1950. And in 1951, it was recognised as a non-governmental organisation. So here we are. And AICA comprises of 5,000 art professionals hailing from around 70 countries and organised into 62 national sections and an open section, which was created to facilitate the inclusion of people from countries where there's no freedom of expression, or where there isn't an organised national section, obviously. AICA is particularly prominent in Europe, Australia, North America, South America and the Caribbean. It also has active sections in the Middle East and in Asia, in Asian countries, as well as various African sections which have been founded more recently. So, and recent AICA annual conferences have taken place in fantastic places: Dakar, Istanbul, Addis Ababa, Cape Town, London, Paris, Taipei, Cologne and Berlin, Turkey online, and Valparaiso and Buenos Aires just now, literally this month. Anyway, the important thing is to tell you what we want to do and our goals. And they've changed very little throughout the years. However, in November 2003, they were redefined in order to re-emphasize the association's global breadth, its cross-cultural aspirations, and its interdisciplinary approach. Its particularly interdisciplinary approach. So the main objections are to support and promote art criticism, to promote art criticism as a discipline and contribute to implement its methodology, to protect the ethical and professional interests of its members and cooperate in defending their rights, to maintain an active international network for its members with the aid of available technologies, while simultaneously encouraging face-to-face contact, to contribute to mutual understanding of visual arts and aesthetics in all cultures, to stimulate professional relationships across political, geographical, ethnic, economic and religious boundaries, ambitions, to promote and defend impartiality and freedom of expression and thought, and to oppose arbitrary censorship. So that's it. Now, we are here, and I would like to just introduce our marvellous speaker, Konstantin Akinsha, and I will just tell you a bit about him, and then he will come up and deliver his speech. Konstantin studied at the Shevchenko Art School in Kyiv, Ukraine. In 1986, he completed a Master's in Art History at the Moscow State University in Russia. He obtained his Candidate of Art History at the Research Institute of Art History in Moscow in 1990, and started a PhD at the University of St Andrews in 2005. In the course of his career, he's been curator at Kyiv Museum of Western and Oriental Art, Moscow correspondent for Art News, contributing editor for Art News magazine, New York, as well as research fellow at both the Germanisches National Museum, Nuremberg, and Bremen Kunstverein East Institute at Bremen University, Bremen. From 1999 to 2000, he was also Deputy Research Director of Art and Cultural Property, Presidential Advisory Commission on Holocaust Assets in the United States. In 2006, he became a European correspondent for Art News magazine in Budapest. And in 2007, he also became a Eugene and Devmel Shakler Fellow at Ukrainian Research Institute of Harvard University. Books written by Konstantin include Stolen Treasure, 1995, co-authored by Grigorii Kozlov, and The Holy Place, co-authored by Grigorii Kozlov and Sylvia, and a book called Beautiful Loot. I don't have enough details on Beautiful Loot. Among the exhibitions curated are Silver Age, Russian art in Vienna around 1900, at the Belvedere Gallery in Vienna, 2014. Russian Modernism, Cross Currents of German and Russian Art, 1907 to 1917, Neue Gallery, New York, 2015. And Permanent Revolution, Ukrainian Art Today, in the Ludwig Museum, Budapest, 2018. And he's co-founding director of avant-garde art research in the UK, but the most extraordinary thing, and very current, is that an exhibition he has co-curated, or mainly curated with assistants, an exhibition at the Thyssen-Bornemisza Gallery in Madrid, and it's titled In the Eye of the Storm, Modernism in Ukraine, 1900 to 1930s. And this will travel to Vienna and Cologne and elsewhere, I hope. And that hope opened literally 2 weeks ago, how long ago? Yeah, last week, my God, of the moment. So welcome and thank you very much for coming to see us.
Actually, what I want to offer to you will be not traditional lecture. It's more corresponding to the Soviet genre of creative report, which officials of the Union authorities had to provide every year. I want to talk about situation we are living now, about the war, and about my own quite personal experience with this horrible and unexpected time. So, it was clear in the spring, especially in February, that the war is imminent. American government was warning Ukrainians, literally on daily basis, that Russian invasion is coming. At that moment, Ukrainians did not want to take it seriously, or pretended that they did not want to take it seriously, telling that Americans not providing final proofs, that it's panicking, that it's creating negative effect, influence on Ukrainian economy, etc., etc., etc. However, Americans were repeating every day, it's coming. I started to panic, probably 2-3 weeks before the war. I called Ukraine, I checked with my friends, it was clear that there are not any measures to protect culture taken or considered. I learned that some museum directors and cultural figures, like quite known cultural figures, wrote a letter to the Minister of Culture demanding some action and some explanation of what to do, which of course was left unanswered. A couple of weeks before the war, I thought that maybe I could influence this Ukrainian rejection to do something through American press, and I wrote an article about necessity of taking seriously the evacuation issue in the Wall Street Journal. However, this did not help too, because position of Ukrainian Ministry of Culture, and I think that the Ukrainian government in general at that moment, was that any evacuation will provoke panic. We don't need panic, we are staying where we are. So the war started. For many people in Ukraine, it was very strong deja vu feeling. We were thrown back into the Second World War. In few days, we started to compare photographs, seeing Kharkiv during the German attack and today. And that was quite horrible. It was not only Kharkiv, many different cities. We will return to the issue of destruction of cultural property during the months of this military conflict. And I tried to react somehow, but how we can react. I started in the beginning to run the blog, trying to give my personal take on this destruction. And unfortunately, I have to say that it was not very difficult to be a Kozlov. Because in some situations, it was possible to predict 2 months in advance what will happen. What museums will be looted, what will be destroyed. And it did not require some kind of prophetic gift. So my soothsaying, unfortunately, proved to be quite accurate. I'm sorry about this. How the war developed? Russians, in the beginning of the conflict, used tactics which they are using today. Densely populated cities became targets of bombardments and missile attacks. So it basically was complicated of Syrian war, of Aleppo. It was nicely repeated in the center of Europe. It's provoking many questions, and it seems that we face very serious soul searching. Recently, I was reviewing and did not finish my review. Currently published volume, which was produced by Getty Foundation, and which included writings of big international pushers like Patzinger from Russische Kulturbesitz, like directors of big important European and American museums on the issue of destruction of cultural property. This book looks today very parodic because it was written before the beginning of the Ukrainian war and published after it. So they have to stick a page explaining their feelings about this conflict, but the whole book, it was celebratory product with a beautiful introduction of the president of UNESCO, of half a vision, our efforts to protect cultural property, to some articles which looks today like a full parody, including discussion about interference for protection of cultural property on the basis of operation of, Blue Helmets in Mali and protecting some clay Mali architecture. It was easy. In Ukraine, it's more difficult to interfere for protection of culture. What made me shocked is the criticism of Russia for destruction of cultural property. Mentioned, but like in passing. No serious conversation on this topic. Of course, I'm understanding because Mr. Patzinger and other respected directors still, when they were writing this book, hoped for the loans from the Hermitage, for business as usual. They could not predict how it was. And when it happened, it happened. So what we faced in Ukraine was two things. First, let's talk about architecture, which started immediately when Russian troops were going to Kyiv, and it was basically the miracle of Chernihiv. Chernihiv is full of early medieval architecture, which by some miracle was saved. It was building around, were destroyed, but this is a symbolical building, symbolical for Ukrainians. It's building of so-called Tarnovsky Museum, which was probably one of the first and the most important historical collections in 19th century Ukraine. It's a nice Gothic revival building, which was basically ruined to no repair state by Russian missiles. Some of these Russian actions in the beginning of the war made us fully puzzled, like attacks on Jewish cultural sites and Jewish memorials. You probably read that Babi Yar, the most important memorial place of Holocaust in Ukraine, was not saved of Russian rockets, but they happened everywhere. For example, Kharkiv, and this is a monument in the place of mass killing of Jews in Kharkiv, which is standing out of the city. There are no installation, no military installation around. And then it's shelled by Russian artillery. I think that as an object, it attracted attention. They did not know what it is, and they did. Or even more telling example. This is the Jewish history in Ukraine was quite tragic through the Ukrainian history. Not too many cemeteries survive, especially historical cemeteries. This is a Jewish cemetery in Plunder, old town of Ukrainian hetmanate. It started, it's not super ancient, it started from 16th century, 16th, 17th century, which had again quite dramatic history, because during the Second World War, when Luka was occupied by the Nazis, Nazis had no other priorities than to ruin the cemetery. So the Russian population, and half of the cemetery was duly ruined, and half remained, because Nazis were kicked out. Now this half, which remained, was targeted by Russian missiles. However, the main problem of, I think, talking about value of architectural monuments became the city of Kharkiv. Kharkiv is a modern city. It basically architecturally had two important layers. It's, let's say, Ukrainian Art Nouveau, it was a rich city of the revolution, and of course constructed, because Kharkiv, which was capital of the Soviet Bolshevist Ukraine until 1934, was the capital of Ukraine as such, had to be turned into the shop window of socialist future. So the most gigantic constructivist architectural projects were realizing. They are very interesting. They survived the Nazi occupation, but I'm not sure that they will survive this event. Of course, this constructivist architecture in Kharkiv has specific aftertaste too, which Ukrainians are not discussing. Because to be honest, it's a form of colonial architecture, or the first Soviet effort of colonial architecture. It was futuristic colonial architecture. Majority of the best construction in Kharkiv were realized not by Ukrainian architects, but by architects sent from Leningrad and other cities towards it. And at this moment, it's a separate topic, which is, I believe, very fascinating, and I hope somebody will research it. This, let's say, marking of the subjugated territories through constructivist architecture, which is, of course, is not nationalistic, it's international, it's futurist, but Russians are going, or Soviets are going with this constructivist architecture all the way to Mongolia. Because in Mongolia, in the late 2030s, they constructed the same, futuristic constructivist building, but of very bad materials. Basically, gluing them of clay. And majority of them did not survive, but it's very far the first effort of creating uniform style, which in a sense could be compared only to Italian cities constructed in the colonies. Here is one of the beautiful examples of this constructivist Kharkiv. It's a house of railway man, of military culture railway man, which survived completely through the history of the Soviet Union and Second World War. Construction with beautiful interiors. It's already later type of construction. Going into the 30s, maybe losing the crisp of the style, but still, as a transitional architecture, it's very interesting, and the interiors were stunning. They were made in black and white stone, and on the steps they had huge painted panels by Lanseret, quite important Russian artist who started on the revolution, but this panels were beautiful. So anyway, this house was aimed by 2 Russian missiles. One just damaged one wing of it, but the second one got in the middle of it. Nothing there. This interior is fully eliminated. We're still, racing for further attacks. We still have main constructivist monuments in Kharkiv, which were slightly damaged, but not really damaged, but we don't know what will happen. What is interesting, because we can even already now to predict what is waiting us in the end of this war, which is not less scary than the war, and many of Ukrainian architects and people dealing with protection of architecture are really pessimistic about the results, because by now we have lines of architects, contractors, not only from Ukraine, but all around this world, standing in line and imagining how they will reconstruct this city. So for Kharkiv, we have the Bureau of Lord Foster, who is ready to come in and to really finally to transform it into a beautiful contemporary city, like something like Canary Wharf, like really cool. Which is making people scared because it will be very strong temptation. What is easy? To restore the damaged monuments or to erase them and put the shining glass skyscrapers. Very possible chance. So Kharkiv became another big problem. Then it's another photograph of the destruction. But not only modernist architecture was aimed. I want to show you just a variety of these monuments, which at the beginning of the war were destroyed or damaged. So, good contrast to the modern architecture, ancient Gorgon stellaries, and it's which were made either by Scythians or Polovtsi or Pichineti, which is very difficult to attribute them. And it was this little park of these Gorgon stellaries in the city of Izium on the top of the mountain. So you can see what Russians were doing with them, like attaching to them red flags, destroying them. It's really stunning. It's absolutely clear that on the first stage of the war, it was not even thought about protection of any cultural property on occupied territories, or even centralized removal. Because the symbolical story of the beginning of the war in Ukraine is Russian looting of Popovy state, which was kind of, I don't know, funny, huge country state constructed in the end of the 19th century and basically downtown area of Ukraine, constructed in all architectural styles you can imagine. Because this estate was looted and partly destroyed during the revolution, and was standing as a ruins, quite picturesque ruins. So after the independence of Ukraine, it was an effort to create local museum in this estate, and some objects which were looted in 1970 were still in the houses of the local villagers. So creator of the museum tried very hard to convince people to return things which were looted from the estate, and one day man arrived and with a big bag and said, sorry, my grandfather made a mistake, he stole this thing from the estate. It was Italian marble 19th century toilet, beautifully carved, etc. So, in the beginning of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, a bunch of Russian soldiers came to this estate, stole everything which was not bolted to the floor, including this historic toilet bowl. So, the chapter of history closed. It was stolen the first time, and it was stolen the second time. And I think the second time we will not never find it again. Another manifestation of this first stage of the war, where you probably read about this because it was written everywhere and it became symbol. It's burning of the museum in Ivanki, which had a collection of important Ukrainian naive artist Maria Primachenko, who's a kind of symbolical figure. This museum was burned during the Russian attack. Everybody was scared that her works were destroyed, but they were saved by local villagers who quite heroically ran into this burning house and saved her works. And then hid them in different houses, being afraid of Russians. But then we are coming to the sad story and the change of the paradigm from just looting and destroying to removing. That happened in the city of Mariupol. You probably read about Mariupol, which was nicknamed at the beginning of the war the Ukrainian Stalingrad. I don't know if it's correct comparison or not, but the city was basically erased from the face of the years. It was really a repetition of Aleppo tactics. And of course, it's not a great museum center. And actually, I did not hear which what did happen to one of very interesting collections. The city was initially 13th century city. Which was mainly populated in 19th century by Greeks, because of this the name of the city. And it had two museums of distinction. It's a museum of Archive-Akinsha, very famous artist of Greek descent who played a very important role in Russian art. This little Akinsha museum was established again after the independence of the museum, and the nice art novel mentioned. And it had few important works of Grigorii, including this red sunset over the Dnieper River, which is the first version of known painting which is in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Also, it has like few other works of 19th century Russian art of the period. The museum was aimed by a bomb, it was basically destroyed. Artworks were saved and removed from Mariupol to Donetsk by Russian troops. We don't know who is responsible for this removal. It's a very interesting situation. We don't know what what's going on. Do Russians have some special troops? Do these troops include trained experts? It's a full thing. So until now, we know that people are moving this stuff, but who are these people that are? We don't know who is giving orders. I know that at the moment, Russian service or BBC is trying to investigate the story, and I wish them well, and I hope that they will find something, because we have to understand the structure. However, it's another painting which was removed by the Russians. However, except this museum of Queen, the city had decent historical museum, like local historical. I don't think, cannot say that they have like unbelievable treasure, but they have decent archaeological collections. And this museum was first looted and then burned. I think that even burning them, they had no time to remove everything, so you can see how this museum looked after it was apprehended by these forces. Mariupol was the first sign of what is coming. And of course, all of this provoked many discussions in Ukraine. And one of the discussions, which is prevalent and which I cannot give answer to the main question, is this destruction of cultural property premeditated? Because sometimes it looks like. I don't want to jump with loud words because I don't have 100% proofs. But in certain situations, it's very, very difficult to find other explanations. For example, this case is the case of this museum of 17th century Ukrainian Cartesian philosopher Grigorii, situated in, or was situated in the manor house not far from Kharkiv. Again, it's in the forest. There are no any kind of military installation of troop station around it. And it was one night aimed by the Russian rocket and fully destroyed. Because it was not evacuated either. They saved some material, but not. Yeah, Skarada is a symbolical figure. I don't know what it's if you will destroy it, Britain, I don't know, Hochfield, it's a household name. Undoubtedly that Ukrainians read Skarada philosophical tracts, but from schools they remember a couple of his verses which they had to learn by heart. So, about it provoking doubts. Why it's becoming target of attack? What the reason for this? But again, we don't have final answer. We see what's happening, but we have no proofs. Especially a remarkable case became hunt for the Scythian gold. This is a collection of Scythian gold in the city of Melitopol, another Greek, historically Greek city, situated near, not far from Melitopol, Mariupol, which turned into some kind of detective story. Because when the city was occupied, first the director of the museum was kidnapped by Russians and kept somewhere for a certain amount of time, which was understandable because she is of Tatar nationality and she was an activist of Crimean Tatar movement. Then rumors started to circulate that this collection of Scythian gold was confiscated by Russians. Ukrainian officials were lying without blinking that it's not true, that the gold was evacuated. And I understand that they did not want to show that they made such a unbelievable mistake. And finally, we learned the story. Because the gold was taken by the museum curators and hidden some. But then one of collaborators, who was part of the group, betrayed them to the Russian occupiers. Gold was confiscated, some of these curators were arrested, and again the gold disappeared without trace. I'm working now on an article about the whole story of this Kisyan gold, which is not with us. And of course, this case of Mariupol became a huge sensation. Everybody started talking about this gold, and The Guardian published a stunningly misleading article written by absolutely illiterate person who claimed that in Mariupol, Russians took the famous Kisyan pectoral, which of course never was in Mariupol, in Melitopol. Never was in Melitopol, is a part of the collection of the National Museum of Historical Treasures, and the poetic description of the spectral provided in The Guardian was very funny. So it's not only The Guardian, everybody became interested in this story. This story has prehistory, and I'm understanding why this Kisyan issue is disturbing everybody so much. Because of course it's connected with famous case of Kisyan gold from Ukrainian museums, which was sent to the exhibition in Amsterdam on the eve of annexation of Crimea in 2014, which you probably read. It was in every newspaper in the world. All these legal battles, Russians demanding to return this gold to Russia, Ukrainians demanding to return this gold to Ukraine, and in the end of the day, it was returned to Ukraine. However, again, all these articles were in kind of misleading, because on every image you could see beautiful golden helmet and other substantial objects, none of which belonged to Crimean museums, because all of them were from Kiev. And Crimean museums have quite a secondary interest and important, but secondary type of objects. This is connected with symbolical value of Kisyan for contemporary Putinist ideology. You probably heard about Eurasian movement, which was born in the beginning of the 20th century, made and supported by some members of Russian immigration, which the idea of which was that Russia is not the West, it's a close of the West, that it's close to Asia, which is now appropriated by Putins, and appropriated in the most brutal and idiotic form. But it was one telling story which was not noticed by Western press, and I have to confess, not noticed by me. I found it recently. There is a famous poem of Russian symbolist poet Alexander Blok, Yes, there's Kisyans, yes, we're Asians, la 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 la, opposing Russia to the West. 2 days before the war, Mr. Rogozin, who is the head of the more Russian space agency, or was at that moment the head of the Russian space agency, famous nationalist politician, nationalist on the border of, I can say, fascism, read this poem on in the broadcast of the main TV channel of Russian Federation. That was the word which we did not hear in that moment, unfortunately. But if everybody heard and wrote about this quote from Melitopol, which you see on your screen, nobody yet said a word about the collection of gold from Kherson. And I think that set of Kisyan gold found in the area of Kherson in the 1950s. It's more important and more interesting than materials which were taken from military. Obviously, this goal was taken now by Russians during the in the moment when they were leaving the city. You probably read about this strange removal, which was legalized by decision of Mr. Putin on basically annexation of some Ukrainian regions. So it was theirs, it was annexed, so it became Russian. This led to full removal of collections of Kyrgyzstan museums. And in difference to other cities, Kyrgyzstan was the only regional center and only serious museum center which was occupied by Russians. So museum collections were just brutally removed. I want to show you some, we are talking about two museums, about Travkulenko Art Museum, which is a decent collection, which had a bit of everything. Good old masters, good Ukrainian art, good Russian art, important paintings. But for me, it's more interesting this historical museum where this Kisian gold was kept. Because it was kind of multi-profile museum which had three locations in the city. And which was based on the 19th century archaeological collection amassed in the city of Kherson. This collection had quite unique things. Like, for example, probably the biggest in the world collection of the coins of Greek policies of Black Sea area. And it's the coins which are not existing in many sums. So some of them were unique to this collection and there are no other copies. So what did happen? Other departments of this museum have everything from, I don't know, manuscripts of Russian and Ukrainian writers and artists, for example, a lot of material connected with Baruch brothers. So all of this lost, and it lost in kind of brutally. Before Kherson was occupied, it was a result of treason, which was another question which we will now seriously discuss in Ukraine. They didn't have time, they decided to evacuate, to remove this stuff from the museum halls. So I will show you some photographs of comparisons, how it looked before Russians came in and how it looked after Russians left the city. Like, for example, this is a collection, public collection of art. It's quite a big collection of art, historical art. This is an archaeological collection of Kherson Museum, and this is the same collection after Russian departure. This is part of collection of Greek antiquity before and after. So, all of this was taken out. And of course, what do we feel and what we can do in this situation? We can say openly, I think, by now, that Ukraine was not ready for this war. I'm talking about protection of culture. In a sense, it's understandable because nobody could imagine that something like this would happen. But not only Ukraine was not ready, everybody was not ready. What we saw at the beginning of this war was very sincere effort to help Ukrainian museum institutions. So everybody was trying to do something. AICA, separate museums, separate organizations. Everybody was collected and sent into the city of Lviv, which is a city based on the western border. Nobody coordinated all these efforts. In the end, we had enough bubble in Lviv to pack the city and to create Christian installation. So, coordination was absolutely, it was good, it was honest effort. But we had no coordination at all. UNESCO is hopeless. Sorry to say, because until like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, Commission on Architectural Heritage was led by Russian diplomat of good old school, who started his activities at the day of Mr. Brezhnev, and it took unbelievable effort to remove him from there. And after all screams and cries, finally, UNESCO was heroic enough to move him out. The thing which UNESCO did is just verifying destruction of cultural property. But I don't want to diminish this effort. People are trying. Smithsonians are doing quite impressive work dealing with satellite photography, which proves to be very, very useful. And of course, they are getting high-grade military photography. People working with this project. Some of them are former military. And it's starting to see these changes, this destruction on good satellite photography. But what I want to return to, it's a situation in Europe. Of course, now when you decided to depart from European Union, you cannot be counted. But we have a very interesting situation because in our history, but in yours too, every war is a last war. That's the last war, it will never come back. In the last century, or beginning of this century, we had huge military conflict in Yugoslavia. One and only country in Europe which has great experience of evacuation of cultural property during the war is Croatia. Croatia created during that time so-called Museum Documentation Bureau, which was stunningly efficient. They did what they could. They developed all possible Croatian protocols, specification for packaging, a specification for storages. And then this war finished, and everybody says, thank you very much, it will never come. So, in the beginning of Ukrainian war, I tried to interest Ukrainians to learn this experience, to learn from Croatians. It was unfortunately on deaf ears, and Croatians were ready to go and to teach them by Zoom, give them seminars, etc. But even Croatian war created metaphors which are describing power of international law for protection of cultural property. When the war started, the Ministry of Culture of Croatia ordered all museums to put on the facades distinctive and visible banners with the signs of hate convention. It was done by every museum, and it was done in the city of Vukovar. When both museums had huge banners with the hate convention sign. They were the first buildings which were shelled by Serbian artillery. It was very attractive, this sign, I'm not sure that those people who were shelling these buildings even had an idea what this is. Yeah, so we are back to the same situation. International law doesn't work, and European Union is absolutely disabled. I discussed this issue literally a few days ago with the Deputy Commissioner on Culture of European Union. They're waking up, but they're waking up very slowly. The funny story is that in Europe, to my knowledge, there is no one country which has developed evacuation protocols which could be used either in case of national disasters or in case of war. So, we are not ready. We don't think about it. We don't think about storages. We don't create a strict system of cooperation. We are not thinking about possibility of evacuation of artworks from one country to another in case of military conflict. Finally, the UK has protocols, which is a big exception in this landscape. But again, it was proved that there is no active mechanism for protection of cultural property in the military conflict. We are not finished. We are just in progress. We don't know where the next Russian missile will fall. And I'm afraid that this sad list of destroyed and eliminated architectural monuments in Rome museums has only all tendency to grow. Now I want to change the topic and then return to this topic in the end, because I promised to Sasha to share my observation about different sides of Ukrainian cultural life or cultural suffering, what do you prefer, I don't know, during this period. And I want to gain, using my own experience, to address the issue of Ukrainian contemporary art and how Ukrainian artists reacted to this war. I will be very short, I don't want to make this segment too long. And for me the question is, what was more efficient, art or photography, painting, etc., or photography? And I believe that photography proved to be much more efficient tool of, let's say, observing this war than art. It's understandable, because we came into a very strange situation when gender balance of Ukrainian art overnight absolutely changed. Because before, when Ukrainians were making exhibitions of contemporary art, they had to think about gender balance, etc. And then we found ourselves in the city of women, returning to old cleaning jobs. Because after the beginning of Russian aggressions, Ukrainians put legal restriction for men in the age of 18 to 60 to leave the country. So all male artists remained locked in the country, and majority of female artists left the country. And so they became those who had to represent Ukraine on the international scene. And of course, it was a lot of reaction, first reaction. But to my taste, this reaction was too emotional. Which is showing that it's very difficult to process war immediately. We came to the genre of kind of visual diary, of A4 format drawings, which became dominating genre. Of course, again, it's understandable. You will not start to produce large-scale paintings or complicated installation in this situation. But emotionality of these drawings started to repeat itself, and we came to the genre of diary. It's very personal diary. It could be visual diary, it could be combination of text and visuals. And sometimes, for me, I'm not happy with this, because I can see the difference. It's not that I'm criticizing it, I'm saying of my personal approach to this. I was curating an exhibition which was dedicated to Maidan Revolution, which me and my co-curator Lisa Loshkina made in Concert House in Kiev, when Maidan was just finished. I'm sorry that my curatorial activities have to coincide with all upheavals in Ukrainian history, and I hope that we will stop this great tradition, but when we were doing Maidan exhibition, it was different, absolutely different artistic. It was young artists immediately found symbolic form which was expressing this. And it was not only art, it was the best they did, it was posters. They created symbol of the revolution, which was a poster depicting a drop with the text, I am a drop in the ocean. And that was the symbol of the people. These posters were put online in clouds, downloaded all around Ukraine during this revolution, printed, covering every wall. And the second type of art during this Maidan revolution, which was stunning, it was political performances, like mass political performances. We don't know whose idea they were. We tried to find later who came with this idea. Never found the real author. But just to name you one of such performances, at some moment when Kiev streets were cut by riot police, with this riot police shields, the aggressively stand beating these shields. Crowd of women came, and all these women had mirrors. So they came to the police, so these police could see themselves. So shields, mirrors, beautiful, extremely efficient performance. Of course, the war is not given such possibilities. And plus to this, Ukrainians went through very difficult period of rethinking of Ukrainian identity. Sometimes being taken away, because we have this cancellation of Russian culture, which emotionally is understandable, but of course you need time, like this endless fight with Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, which becoming a little bit boring. We have even new iconography, I think that we need new Wagner to follow this repeated traits of this double-headed Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. So it's emotionalism, it's not serious thinking or serious criticism, and you cannot expect serious thinking at this moment. It's coming to some parodic elements, like in the city of Kiev, the street name after Dostoevsky was a reason to the name in the street of anti-war, which obviously is a sign of comedy. But the question is that it's art of the moment, art of the emotion. We need to revise, we are facing serious revision of history, which was good. I'm talking about art history and I'm talking about history. There are two different problems. Ukrainian problem, because we created a lot of mythological narratives too, often becoming a kind of mirror of Russia, like doing the same by different means. I will return to the story a bit later, but Russians face unbelievable problem of redemption, which is including, of course, the rethinking of Russian culture. Ukrainians are screaming now daily about decolonization and Russian colonialism. Of course, the situation is much more complex. Ukraine is not classical culture. And rational Ukrainian historians, like, for example, Critic from the Catholic University in Lviv, is repeating that it's not so simple. It's not so simple. It's a very complicated story, because Ukraine started like Scotland and finished like Ireland in this colonial war. We have to compare ourselves not with Britain, but more maybe with Austro-Hungary, with horizontal empires, etc. So it's a lot of revision is needed. It's most due, and of course, the most interesting thing that Ukrainian reaction in this reaction at some model which is not static. We have today vision of this, but we have three different models. We have imperial model, we have Soviet model, which is, of course, in a sense, imperialist and colonialist, but different. And we have communist model. And Putinist model looks like a parody on Stalinist model of usage of culture for imperial purposes. Because what you can do, like Ukrainians are today destroying Pushkin monuments. But they have hundreds of these Pushkin monuments. What Pushkin is doing in the city of Chernovitz, which was part of Austro-Hungarian Empire, and again we can discuss what is more important in cultural legacy of Chernovitz, Ukrainian, Romanian, German, or Jewish area. They have to have a monument to Celan in that city, not to Pushkin. How is possible that more than 400 streets in Ukraine, around Ukraine, are named after it? He did not visit all those streets. And it's a very interesting model which was never thought through. I cannot imagine, I don't know other colonial power. I don't believe that British colonialists were putting in Sudan after Magdia Prize and busts of Shakespeare on every corner. Yeah, I cannot imagine, I don't know, Germans constructing monument of Goethe in Namibia. Italians could put that, but not for the usage of Aborigines, but for local Italian Dante society. So how Pushkin, Tolstoy, and everything else became instruments of this domination is an interesting and important question. And I think that we still did not even start to analyze it, to think about and describe that instrumentalization of culture on all its stages, which we came through from the Russian Revolution to Mr. Putin and his historical constructs and daydreaming. But of course, looking at what's happening now, sometimes I have very strong feeling to say that maybe it's better to prohibit history as such. So, finishes the story with Ukrainian visual art. I have to say that some young artists now are able to create efficient metaphors. I'm not sure that they're very deep, but they're technically nicely done as an objects and metaphorically quite understandable and playful. This is artist John Kadyrov, who recently made breads produced of stone. It's a stone sculpture. And it's a direct reference to the legends of this war, because according to one of these legends, Ukrainians created their shibboleth, which is the name of special type of bread in Ukrainian called palenitsa, which the word for some reason Russians cannot pronounce. So they were chicken people, were probably who were they had suspicions that they were Russian. They say palenitsa. And they never could do it, so they got shibboleth, and she made these breads of stone, which were exhibited recently in different museums and purchased by different museums in Europe. She's a very good artist, and what I want to say is that I hope that processing of this war needs some time. We cannot come with immediate reaction as it was possible during the 2014 revolution. We still don't have image of this war created by artists. We have more folklore images and kind of tales of the beginning of this war, which are much stronger than artistic production which we have. Photographic production was different. And I want to share my experience with two photographers who, from the beginning of this war, produced very interesting, to my taste, works. It's Alexander Chikmenov. Chikmenov was known in Ukraine way before the war. He's well known portrait photographer. And I called him literally on the second day of the war to check what's going on with him. He was sitting in some cellar with refugees, hosting refugees and hiding them. And then 2 days later, I called him and he was already photographing for the New York Times. It was an interesting story because the New York Times wanted to use him as a news photographer. And he refused. He said, I'm not interested, I want to do portraits. And this editor in New York Times said, do one, do two. And 2 portraits, then 4 portraits, then 8 portraits, and then they made special issue of New York Times magazine called Portraits of Kiev. Were portraits of all possible people, of all possible very dramatic portraits. It's the portrait of women which is hiding in the metro station from bombardment. These people could be old, young, and you can look at this series. I don't want to waste time now just going online to New York Times website and checking it. And I immediately thought that it's interesting to make an exhibition of these portraits. And on quite every stage, the city of Venice supported this idea, and the University of Moscow supported this idea. We got desecrated church on Via Garibaldi, very close to the entrance of Biennial, and we had a chance to do this exhibition, which later traveled to Croatia, to the city of Zagreb, and was quite successful. After this, everybody, everywhere made Czech-Minor exhibitions, so that became brand name, but I'm very happy that I succeeded to do it the first. And working with Czech-Minor, because I was running my blog and writing articles about the destruction of architecture and heritage, I asked him, do you know any photographer in art who is, he said, I know. The guy became nuts. He's going and every day photographing destruction of architecture. So, thanks to Czech-Minor, I encountered Stanislav Ostrovs, who is a professor of photography in Kharkiv Art School. He was quite well known conceptual photographer. Maybe mainly working in black and white photography, but when the war started, he had some kind of epiphany or negative. He loves architecture, and the buildings around him were destroyed one by one. He decided to have visual record of this destruction, and he decided to leave black and white, do it in color. And every day he was going to make these photographs, immediately after sharing or even during sharing. So first time he asked me when we started these conversations, because he needed bulletproof jacket. Sent for Katya Denisova, my irreplaceable collaborator and friend, we got this bulletproof jacket. And then we got the helmet for him. It was a horrible mistake, because from that moment he decided that he can do everything and he is protected by God. So he was in East, taking very serious risks, going to photograph immediately after bombardments, during bombardments, etc. He created like very impressive chronicle of destruction of Kharkiv architecture. In difference to other photographers, he's going inside these buildings, which is even more dangerous. It's a ruined building, you don't know what will fall down. And in June, I reached agreement and interest Architectural Museum of Technische Universität Berlin to do the exhibition. We started to think how to do it. And the idea in the end was not to do it in the museum, because the university has building on as the Reuterplatz, which is basically the center of Berlin. And this square is kind of symbolical because during the Second Cold War, it was fully erased, like full area erased. There is no one stone there of pre-war time. And it had also this important city building. So we decided just to use it and to put photographs in this way. Some photographs we composed, like big photographs, some separate images. It looks awesome. It looks like this, it's during the montage. So the idea was that the square was reflected in these buildings. The buildings were reflected in the ruins. And it worked quite well, because it's very busy square, many people are going, and of course we never could have such numbers visiting the Architecture Museum of Technical University. And so I hope that it will be other chances to show. Okay. There. Yeah, because I'm coming to the last part of the story, which is our art historical effort and what I was telling you about it. Necessity of revision of our art history and terminology, etc. In the, let's say, roughly in April, March, I thought that it's necessary. What can I do? How can I change this equation? I have no power, I cannot do anything. And I thought that the only way to kind of evacuate Ukrainian art is to do an exhibition. International exhibition, which will please Ukrainian authorities, to popularize Ukrainian art, and at the same time will remove it out of the country, take it out of harm, etc. And in this moment, I met Katia Denisova from the Curator Institute, who is a PhD historian in Curator. And we decided that we will try to do what we can. Katia became a replaceable helper and collaborator in this project. So what we did everything against any rules of curatorial textbook. We started with catalog before we found the venue. Fortunately, we succeeded to convince Temple Hudson to work on this catalog here in the whole Julian and Melissa, who were our editors and helpers in this project, which was realized in extremely fast manner. It's quite a big book, and we need to leave aside text. We need to clear rights for 240 illustrations. And then the search for venues started. We got immediate yes from Ludwig Museum Cologne, but they could hold the exhibition only May of next year. And then, thanks for support of Francesca Thyssen-Bernimisa, we got venue in the National Museum Thyssen-Bernimisa in Madrid. And this project was growing and growing, because at the beginning Thyssen Museum wanted to give one hall, then two halls, then they removed the part of permanent collection to free space for the exhibition, and and we started to move. Maybe some of you already read something in newspaper, because Sam distributed, we did Indiana Jones element to the story, with rockets falling on the trucks transporting art, with those Polish border, etc. But we had two intentions. We wanted to evacuate this art, and I think that we succeeded. I'm absolutely happy, because it was fully private initiative in the moment, not supported by anybody, but step by step we succeeded to build up the pool, we succeeded to find support. In the end, President Zelensky agreed to be patron of this exhibition, which of course was quite handy, I can tell you, because otherwise to move it out of Ukraine would be nearly impossible. But our task is not limited by evacuation and protection. We understand absolutely clearly that it's time to reset Ukrainian art history, to change the narrative of description of Ukrainian art of the beginning of the 20th century. Unfortunately, more or less, through this independence year, it became a monkey of Russian version. Because now finally we notice that the term Russian avant-garde is quite paradoxical term. First, Russian artists never called themselves or defined themselves as avant-garde artists. The word mentioned 2 times, one in the article of Alexander Noah, the next time by Pugin, but it was not contextualized, it was not used as a name for art group, and by Russia, because how of this avant-garde was Soviet, was it half connected with imperial tradition. To be honest, this term was coined by Art Market. It was coined in the 1970s when the market needed like striking label. It was good labeling and good branding because before this avant-garde often was called revolution and blah blah blah. It was not going very well with let's say big American collectors who wanted to have this art by like this reference. It's Russian movement. Of course, part of Ukrainian material was sold under the label Russian avant-garde because it was too complicated. Yeah, I know. So we have to change this equation, and we have to change, we hope to build out a new narrative, revisionist narrative of Ukrainian modernism. It's a very dramatic story. Those of you who will be interested to look at the book of Temple Cards will get a glimpse. We understand that it's only the first step, and they think that we will continue these efforts. And that optimistic note, the paintings were not destroyed by the missiles, grid, and everybody is enjoying. Sorry for this chaotic lecture and chaotic mixture of everything, but that's what I wanted to tell you and just to share my experience and my observation. Thank you very much.
It told us so much, it's mind-blowing. If people have any questions, do ask them, and also do start having a drink if you want to, but have some questions first of all. You've got the microphone here. So, any questions? Come back up. Any questions, please? Or you just knocked out and have nothing to say? Yes.
Hi, Konstantin. I'm just wondering if you need any further financial contributions for any particular projects, and if so, for what?
I want to tell you, of course, what we need is the financial contributions, which became, finding of which became a part of my reality. Because even for doing this book in 10,000, we needed money. And I was going with the head in my hand, and then, yeah. We need financial contributions for different things. First, we need financial contributions for moving this exhibition around. It's going to Cologne, as I told you, but we have a lot of interested countries, which I don't want to name now, because it's some of them are ready to cover this, and some of them need some certain support. United Kingdom is not excluded from this story, but it's a preliminary negotiation. I think that in 1 month we will have much better picture how we can organize this travel. But we want to do more, because of course after this first experience we want to evacuate in the same way another group of important artworks from Ukrainian museum, making this in the form of exhibition. And I think that
Minka, AICA, we are proud because we created some know-how. So instead of catalog, we first publish a book and then adding this book to exhibition, and instead of classical evacuation, we are organizing art shows during the war. Blockbuster in the time of the war, in the time of play.
Thank you. Have you any more questions? I think you're a bit knocked out. It's a bit much, it's fantastic. Can I just thank you for the most fantastic lecture and presentation? You've really told us so much. Thank you so much.